You are standing before something that weaves. Not the mechanical process of interlacing threads, but something deeper, something that binds together not only fiber but moments, something that takes the loose strands of experience and transforms them into the coherent texture of a life. Before you, the loom reveals itself not as a machine but as a rhythm, a pattern that exists at the edge of perception, where the boundary between creation and creator grows thin as the thread that passes through the shuttle. This is not a place you find by searching, not a destination marked on any map, but a convergence that occurs when your own life feels fragmented, when the narrative of your days has become incoherent, when the soul hungers for the kind of meaning that only emerges from patient repetition, from the accumulation of small gestures that amount to something whole. The path to this place is made of threads, of accumulated fibers that slipped through your fingers unnoticed, of patterns that were abandoned before completion, of the relentless unraveling that occurs when attention is divided. You do not need to understand how you arrived. The loom found you, as it finds all who need it, drawn by the fraying edges of your own story, by the loose ends that dangle from the fabric of your existence, by the silent longing for continuity in a world that celebrates only the new. The air here is thick with potential, with the weight of bobbins not yet wound, with the memory of countless yards compressed into the gleam of polished wood and the whisper of pedals rising and falling. You stand at the threshold and feel the loom waiting, patient as only craft can be patient, eternal as only forgotten arts can be eternal, ready to teach you what it has taught every weaver who ever sat before it, that life is not a line but a fabric, that haste is the enemy of beauty, that the only moment that matters is the one that contains the full attention of your hands. You step across the threshold and the rhythm envelops you like a shawl, like the embrace of a grandmother who has been waiting since before you were born, like the return to a womb where you were first imagined into the pattern that would become your life. The space is not arranged for production but for meditation, the walls lined not with shelves but with rolls, with hundreds of bolts of cloth of every texture and hue, each one containing a different story, each one holding time for a different moment that has passed or is yet to come. The floor is wooden, worn smooth by feet that worked the pedals in perfect timing, feet belonging to those who understood that weaving requires the whole body, that the coordination of hand and foot and eye and breath is itself a meditation that changes the meditator. Light enters through windows that face north, the weaver's light, steady and true, creating a perpetual morning that is neither early nor late but the timeless hour when the world holds its breath and the thread moves through the shed without shadow. In the center of the room stands the loom, its frame massive and dark with age, its beams polished by the oils of countless hands that have guided the shuttle back and forth in the ancient dance that requires no music but produces its own song. The air smells of wool and linen and the particular dry scent of silk that has been stored against the damp, a scent that triggers memories you did not know you possessed, recollections of rooms you have never entered but somehow recognize. As your eyes adjust to the steadiness of the light, you begin to see movement everywhere, not the frantic motion of the modern world but the slow, deliberate dance of the beater, the steady advance of the cloth beam, the patient unwinding of the warp that holds the tension of creation. A staircase leads downward from the main room, its steps narrow and worn, each one slightly bowed in the center where the weaver descended and ascended countless times, carrying bobbins too precious to trust to gravity. The descent is not difficult but requires attention, the steps being uneven, shaped by centuries of use rather than modern construction, following the logic of the building's foundation rather than imposing a human geometry upon it. As you descend, The rhythm grows deeper, not in volume but in resonance, approaching the fundamental frequency where each beat becomes indistinguishable from the heartbeat of the earth itself, where the sequence of movements transforms into a continuous flow that requires no counting, only surrender to the pattern that was established before you were born. The walls of the stairwell are lined with spindles, hundreds of spindles standing at attention like soldiers who have never known war, only the transformation of fluff into thread, of potential into kinetic, of raw material into the possibility of form. There are no railings, no protections against falling, just the wood and the void beyond the edge of each step, the trust that your own balance is sufficient, that your own attention is protection enough. This was intentional, the weaver understanding that reaching the lower chambers required commitment, required a willingness to risk, to trust yourself completely, to accept that craft demands respect. You move slowly, not because you are tired, but because slowness is the language of this place, because each step is an opportunity to be present, to feel the wood beneath your foot, the air in your lungs, the beating of your heart that marks time in the rhythm that predates all clocks. The lower chamber opens at the bottom of the stairs, larger than the entrance but darker, its ceiling lower, its atmosphere thick with the particular humidity of underground places where fiber behaves differently, where wool becomes supple and silk becomes liquid, where the preparation of thread becomes not a preliminary to weaving but a sacred act in itself. This is the dye room, the heart of the loom, where color comes to be born, where raw white skeins are transformed by immersion into vats that hold the concentrated essence of plants and minerals and insects, the accumulated knowledge of generations who learned which leaves produce blue, which roots produce red, which secretions of which creatures produce the purple that was once worth more than gold. The light here is filtered through high windows that catch the afternoon sun, creating pools of illumination that shift and move as the day progresses, as the dye vats steam and settle, as the colors fix themselves into the fiber through processes that cannot be rushed, that demand the patience that this place cultivates like a garden. When you look up, you see not sky but complexity, the underside of the floor above exposed to reveal the infrastructure of the building, the beams and joists that hold the structure in place, that have settled over centuries into a compromise with gravity that is both precarious and eternal. The room amplifies sound in strange ways, the silence not empty but full of small noises, the drip of dye, the creak of expanding wood, the microscopic movement of fibers absorbing liquid, the conversations of pigments too small to see but too numerous to ignore. You feel the pulse of the loom, not as abstract knowledge but as physical sensation, the sense that you are inside a womb, inside a mechanism of impossible delicacy, inside a creature that metabolizes color and exhales pattern, that takes in raw material and produces meaning with an efficiency no technology can match. The loom contains deeper levels, smaller chambers accessible through passages that require you to crouch, to make yourself small, to approach these hidden spaces with the humility of a thread being wound, of a shuttle being loaded. These lowest chambers are not for general weaving but for the most delicate work, for the repair of damaged tapestries, for the restoration of fabrics that carry histories too precious to lose, for processes that must occur in absolute stillness to produce what will later be celebrated in museums. The walls here are lined with drawers, hundreds of drawers of every size, each one containing threads that match no color chart, hues that were produced by recipes that have been lost, that exist now only in the fibers themselves. Sitting at the work table in this chamber, feeling the weight of the magnifying lens against your eye, you understand the appeal of smallness, the wisdom of focusing on the infinitesimal, the intelligence of threads that know what human ambition forgets, that strength is not in the single strand but in the accumulation of many, that the smallest repair can preserve the largest story, that the visible fabric is supported by invisible labor. This position was not designed but discovered, found by those who stayed long enough to be taught by the loom, to be led by curiosity and patience into spaces that reveal themselves only to those who approach with needle in hand, with thread ready. Time moves differently here, or perhaps it is simply that the usual measurements lose meaning in the face of restoration that operates on scales of days and weeks rather than hours and minutes. There are moments at the loom when the threads themselves seem to respond to your presence, when conditions align in ways that cannot be planned or predicted, when the tension is perfect and the shuttle moves without effort and your mind is quiet enough to receive what the textile world offers. On these occasions, which are not really occasions but qualities of attention that exist in this place beyond schedule, the loom becomes transparent, the frame seeming to dissolve, leaving only the relationship between your consciousness and the weave, between the maker and the made, the teller and the tale. You feel not separate but continuous, part of something vast yet intimate, a node in a network of craft that extends across time and space to include all who have ever passed a shuttle in hope, all who have ever mourned a warp that snapped under tension, all who have known that fabrics are not objects but subjects, not commodities but relations. This is the gift of the loom, the reason it was built, the reason it persists through centuries that would destroy anything less adapted, to create conditions where this connection can occur, where the boundaries between self and material become permeable, where making is replaced by becoming, where weaving becomes being woven. Silence comes to the loom rarely, the space usually filled with the rhythmic percussion of the beater, the whisper of the shuttle passing through the shed, the creak of the treadles rising and falling in the pattern that is the loom's true language. But when it comes, when conditions align to bring perfect quiet to this place of perpetual motion, it transforms the loom completely, changes its character, awakens something that noise leaves dormant. The absence of rhythm in this room of rhythm is magical, a presence that contrasts with the usual texture of sound, that brings a different kind of life to the space in ways that movement cannot achieve. Moths also come to the loom, though less frequently than in the world outside, the structure somehow holding protection like a shawl holds warmth, creating pockets of safety that guard the most delicate fabrics from the destruction that would consume them. The moths here are different, not the frantic fluttering of creatures seeking light but something slower, something that seems to understand the value of what it might destroy, that moves through the chambers with a respect that approaches reverence, that feeds only on what has already been abandoned. Inside the chambers, the air is thick with the scent of cedar and lavender, the traditional protections that have been used for millennia, their fragrance combining with the natural oils of the fiber to create an atmosphere that is both stimulating and calming. Weavers who stayed through silent nights reported experiences of profound solitude, not loneliness but the solitude of a thread waiting to be spun, of a pattern dormant in the mind, of a reduction of existence to its essential elements that some found terrifying and others found preparatory. You feel this now, even though you are not in silence, even though the rhythm surrounds you. You feel the potential for stillness, for the patience of projects that wait years or decades for hands to return, that trust the cycle in ways that humans struggle to trust. The loom contains no decorations, no art for art's sake, nothing that does not serve the essential function of weaving. But the fabrics themselves have become beautiful through function, through repetition, through the slow accumulation of craft that has produced patterns no artist could design, textures that invite touch and reward it with connection. You begin the ascent from the lowest chamber, moving back through the spaces you have traversed, but they are not the same spaces, or you are not the same person who descended what seems like hours ago but may have been minutes. Time has become fluid at the Loom, has lost the rigid structure that governs life outside, has become something you move through rather than something that moves you. The spiral staircase feels different going up, each step an opportunity to release rather than to achieve, to let go rather than to strive. The air grows lighter, drier, more like the air of ordinary existence, but you carry something with you from the depths, some quality of patience, some capacity for repetition, some understanding of what your own consciousness can contain when stripped of haste. You pass through the dye room, then the weaving room, each one familiar yet transformed by your passage through the lowest chamber, by the experience of sitting at the restoration table and feeling possibility surround you. The Loom has given you what it gives to all who enter with openness, with willingness to be changed by rhythm and fiber. You find yourself at the threshold now, but the path behind you has disappeared, has been absorbed into the structure. You do not need to retrace your steps. You only need to allow yourself to drift, to let the sleep that has been waiting claim you, to surrender to the darkness that is not the absence of light but the presence of rest. The Loom continues its weaving, as it has always woven, as it will continue long after your brief presence has been absorbed into its wood. You are not leaving. You are becoming part of something larger, something eternal, something that holds you as the warp holds the weft, as the shuttle holds the thread, as sleep holds the sleeper. The Loom holds secrets that only reveal themselves to those who return again and again, who build relationships with the fibers and the patterns that deepen over time like friendships that require no words. There are notations on certain beams that seem random until you have watched long enough to understand their system, until you have seen how they record the modifications made to the Loom over centuries, how they note the adjustments that were necessary to accommodate threads that were thicker or thinner than standard, patterns that were more complex than the original design allowed. These are not the deliberate markings of the original builder but the accumulated traces of all who have worked here, each weaver adding something, leaving something, changing the space in ways too subtle to see but too real to deny. The wood remembers, though not in any way that science can measure, not in any way that instruments can detect. It remembers in the way that places remember, by holding the quality of attention that has been directed toward them, by becoming shaped by the consciousness that has encountered them. You sense this now, as you rest in the weaving room, as you allow your breathing to synchronize with the rhythm that surrounds you. You are not the first to feel this, and you will not be the last. You are part of a continuity that stretches back through centuries, through generations of weavers who found in this place something that the world outside could not offer, the chance to be still, to be present, to be part of something larger than the concerns of daily existence. The light in the windows has shifted again, moving toward evening, toward the darkness that will bring a different quality of sound, a different texture of silence. You welcome this transition, this daily miracle of change that requires no effort from you, that happens whether you watch or not, but which offers itself to your attention if you choose to receive it. Night falls on the Loom with a gentleness that belies the absolute transformation it brings. The last light fades from the windows, the last gleam drains from the polished wood, and suddenly the darkness is complete, is total, is overwhelming in its density. But this is not the darkness of fear, not the darkness of blindness, but the darkness that makes texture visible, that creates the conditions for the true nature of cloth to reveal itself. And reveal itself it does, one thread at a time, the surfaces changing as your fingers explore them, until the darkness is filled with them, until the blackness is not empty but full, not absence but presence of a different kind. You lie on your back on the wooden floor, feeling its coolness against your skin, feeling the solidity of the earth beneath you, feeling the vibration of the loom as a gentle pressure that holds you in place even as it moves you through tactile space, through textile landscapes that shift and change like visible clouds. The fabrics communicate overhead, their qualities too subtle for direct perception but visible in their effects, in the way they hold or release heat, in the way they absorb or reflect the faint light that finds its way through the windows, in the way they seem to breathe, expanding and contracting with changes in humidity that you cannot measure but can feel against your skin. This is the gift of the loom, not control but participation, not mastery but membership, not dominion but democracy. You understand now why the first weavers chose this work, why they carried spindles and shuttles, why they built the frames with such care. They were creating not just a way to make cloth but a space for relationship, a place where human consciousness could expand to meet the scale of creation, where the finite could touch the infinite without being destroyed. There are sounds at the loom at night that daytime hides, subtle vibrations that travel through the wood from sources you cannot identify. The building itself is alive in ways that daylight obscures, shifting and settling, expanding and contracting with temperatures that change more dramatically when the sun no longer moderates them. You hear these sounds now, not as threats but as companions, as reminders that you are not alone in your resting, that the structure itself participates in the vigil, that the loom has its own rhythms, its own cycles, its own form of attention that does not require consciousness. The wind rises and falls outside, sometimes pressing against the walls with insistence, sometimes withdrawing completely to leave absolute stillness. Both conditions have their teachings. The wind reminds you of the world's persistence, of forces that continue whether you observe them or not. The stillness reminds you of peace, of the possibility of complete rest, of the silence that exists at the heart of all movement. You move between these states, between attention and relaxation, between watching and simply being. The loom accommodates both, has room for both, was built to hold both. There is no single correct way to be here, no protocol that must be followed, no ritual that must be performed. There is only presence, only willingness, only the openness to receive what the place offers and to give what you have to give in return. This exchange, this relationship, is what has sustained the loom through centuries, what has made it more than wood and thread, what has transformed it into a living entity that responds to those who approach it with respect. You feel this now, feel the reciprocity, feel the give and take that requires no words, no negotiation, no conscious agreement. It simply happens, simply flows, simply exists as naturally as the shedding of the warp, as the passing of the shuttle, as the beating of the weft into place. Dawn approaches the loom with textures that seem impossible, with surfaces that shift through qualities that have no names, that exist only in the moments between night and day, in the transition that repeats daily but never repeats exactly. You have watched through the night, or you have slept, or you have drifted in some state between the two that the loom makes possible, that it encourages, that it holds as gently as it holds everything else. The darkness fades gradually, not disappearing but becoming invisible, the fabric still present but overwhelmed by the greater light that approaches. You think of all the mornings that have dawned on this place, all the weavers who have seen this same transition, who have felt this same mixture of loss and anticipation, of sadness at the night's departure and joy at the day's return. You are connected to them now, across time, across space, across all the differences of culture and language and belief that separate humans from each other. In this moment, watching this dawn, you are one with them, part of a community that exists only in the act of weaving, that has no other membership requirement, no other obligation. The light strengthens, becomes more definite, more directional. Shadows appear where there have been no shadows, defining spaces that darkness made uniform. The wood warms, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but you feel it, you notice it, you include it in your awareness. This is the loom's teaching, that everything changes, that everything can be noticed, that attention is the only gift required and the only gift given. You carry this teaching with you now, woven into your being, available even when you have left this place. The days pass at the loom with a rhythm that has nothing to do with clocks, nothing to do with schedules, nothing to do with the demands that the world outside makes on time. You eat when hungry, sleep when tired, weave when the threads offer something worth weaving, rest when they do not. This simplicity is liberating, is healing, is a return to something fundamental that industrialization has obscured but not destroyed. You remember what it is to be an animal, to be a body, to be a consciousness that exists in direct relationship with its environment rather than mediated through screens and schedules and social expectations. The loom strips all of this away, not through rejection but through irrelevance. None of it matters here. None of it reaches here. Only what is essential remains: food, warmth, shelter, and the weaving that is the reason for all three. You understand now why the weavers stayed, why they gave their lives to this place, why they chose solitude over company, silence over speech, wood over comfort. They were not escaping the world but finding it, not rejecting life but embracing it more fully than the world outside allowed. You feel this possibility in yourself now, this opening, this expansion. You do not need to stay forever to receive the gift. You only need to stay long enough to understand that staying is possible, that the world outside will wait, that it will take you back when you are ready, changed but not destroyed, enriched rather than diminished. The loom has given you this understanding, has woven it deep within you where it will continue to grow long after you have descended the stairs. You carry it now like a thread, like a promise, like a secret that you will share with no one because it cannot be shared in words, only in the quality of your presence, only in the depth of your attention, only in the peace that others will sense in you without knowing its source. There comes a moment at the loom when you realize that you have stopped counting rows, stopped measuring your progress, stopped comparing this moment to any other. You are simply here, simply present, simply alive in a way that feels both ancient and new, both familiar and unprecedented. The floor beneath you, the fabrics around you, the air within you, all of it is immediate, all of it is real, all of it is sufficient. You do not need more. You do not want more. This is enough, this presence, this attention, this being. The loom has taught you this, has led you to this, has held you while you learned it. You will carry this knowledge with you when you leave, will carry it back to the world outside, will carry it through the rest of your life as a touchstone, as a reminder, as a proof that such moments are possible, that such peace exists, that such connection with something larger than the self is available to anyone who seeks it with sincerity. But you are not leaving yet. There is more to receive, more to learn, more to become. The Loom continues to offer, continues to teach, continues to transform. Each moment is new, each moment is complete, each moment is a gift that requires no payment, no obligation, no debt. You simply receive, simply allow, simply be. This is the highest teaching, the deepest wisdom, the most profound transformation that the Loom offers, not knowledge but being, not understanding but presence, not achievement but acceptance. You feel this truth settling into your bones, into your breath, into the very fabric of your consciousness. It does not need to be remembered because it cannot be forgotten. It has become part of what you are, part of how you move through the world, part of how you encounter whatever comes next. And now you feel the sleep that has been waiting, that has been patient, that has not demanded but has simply been present, available, ready when you are ready. It comes to you as a gift, as a natural consequence of the peace you have found, the stillness you have cultivated, the attention you have directed. You do not fight it. You do not resist. You welcome it as you have welcomed everything else at the Loom, with openness, with gratitude, with trust. The floor beneath you becomes softer, becomes a bed, becomes a place of rest that holds you as gently as the Loom has held you throughout your time here. The fabrics around you become a dream, become a story, become a landscape you will explore in sleep as you have explored it in waking. The boundary between self and place dissolves, between maker and made, between the one who weaves and the one who is woven. You are all of it now, are part of all of it, are held within all of it. The Loom continues its existence, continues its weaving, continues its patient transformation of thread into cloth that will continue long after your brief presence has ended. But you are part of it now, permanently, irrevocably. Your attention has been added to the accumulation, your presence to the history, your being to the wood. Sleep takes you gently, takes you completely, takes you into darkness that is not empty but full, not an end but a beginning, not a departure but a deeper arrival. You drift now, drift downward, drift inward, following paths that the Loom has prepared for you, that it has always prepared for those who come here with openness and sincerity. The shuttle moves overhead, the pedals hold you below, and you between them, held in both directions, held in all directions, held in the gentle embrace of a place that knows how to weave, how to wait, how to welcome, how to transform. Sleep now. Sleep deeply. Sleep in peace.